how many children die from accidental shootings, but they don't break it down whether it's an accident where I found it, or what's even worse is, or what's even more common, is a group of kids getting together and they're showing off, hey look, my daddy's got this, boom, 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 and it goes off and shoots one of the others. So it doesn't break down between those, but there are 75 to 80 per year that fit into this category. And a lot of that falls back on the parents because they didn't A, follow the safety rules, but then they weren't responsible gun owners. And if you're responsible gun owners, kids, unauthorized people don't have access to your guns. And kids are definitely unauthorized in that situation. So the National Rifle Association has a program, it's called Eddie Eagle. And Eddie Eagle is a video that you watch, and you watch it with your kids, and it's awesome because it says, and it repeats it over and over and over, and you get it in your head and can't get it out, and the eagle comes around and says, if you find a gun, stop, don't touch, leave the area, and tell an adult. And my kids know that. My kids can sing the song because we've watched the video together quite a few times. So they know that, and I've done tests with them. I'll take one of my work guns and triple check it to make sure that it's unloaded, and I'll leave it laying out. And if they see it, and I'll watch them, and if they see it, they're supposed to come get it. And they do a pretty good job of it. If they don't, I remind them that they're supposed to come get it. So as soon as they see one that's laying out where they can get to it and they know they're not supposed to, this is what they're supposed to do. Stop, don't touch it, leave, and come tell an adult. So information on this program is easily available. I'm pretty sure that we have some stuff over there. The videos, I don't know if you have to buy the videos or if they'll just send them out for free or whatever. But the NRA is a good resource because whether you agree with the National Rifle Association or not and their stance on politics and things like that, they were founded as education and safety. That was their main goal when they were started, was to educate people about using guns and to keep people safe. And if their political views, they want to keep guns free and in the hands of people, the best way to do that is to prevent accidents. Because if a bunch of people have accidents, the opinion on guns is going to start changing. And so they do a lot of work with teaching people and especially teaching children how to be safe. So let's talk about responsible firearm ownership. I am a firearm owner, and I have a reasonable sized collection of guns. And somewhere along the line, when I started realizing I was getting a couple of guns, I said, I have to invest in a safe. So I have a safe in my basement that holds all my guns. I can lock them all up. Now the safe is not foolproof. It's man-made, and it can be broken by a man. So if somebody has a day with a torch or something like that, they could cut their way into my safe and get all my stuff. But the idea behind keeping a gun safe is just, again, to keep it from unauthorized people. So my kids can't get into my safe. My wife can get into my safe. But, so let's talk about it. There are different types of safes. If you only own one gun and you own it for self-defense, these are a good example of what you can put that gun in to keep people away from it. You'll notice that it has here, it has a spot for your fingers to go. And you can have the code 1234 3214. You can put your code in however you want to. They're actually making these now that will recognize your fingerprint. So you can lay your finger on there and it will say, hey, I know you. Or you can program, what's good is you can program 3 or 4 people in there and they all can get into it. So these will mount anywhere that you have a little bit of space. So it can be in the bedroom, it can be in the closet, it can be in the kitchen, wherever you want to have it, and you can keep your gun locked up in there. A lot of people will keep, and I can't see if they got it right here, a lot of people will keep some small valuables or something like that on one shelf, and a firearm and a flashlight on the other. Because if you take your flashlight or if you take your firearm out, but you can't see what you're shooting at, you don't know if it's the neighbor that got mixed up in the wrong house because he had too much to drink, because that happens. You don't know if it's the neighbor's kid that got the house mixed up, or if it's the bad guy that's coming in. And so if you can't see it, you can't shoot it. All right, so now let's talk about gun locks. And I've got some more gun locks in the car. If anybody wants one that didn't get one off the table, if they're already gone. The idea behind the gun lock is that it locks the gun so that it can't be used. These on the right are trigger locks, and they lock inside the trigger guard and keep anybody from being able to pull the trigger. So that it's two halves that lock together, and so now you can't get to the trigger. Some manufacturers make internal locks, and they sell a key that comes with it. There are different ones of them. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, but they're out there, and you can actually lock the gun, which is awesome until you go on a hunt trip or something like that and leave your key at home, and you can't get to your gun. And then finally, there are these, and these are more generic gun locks. You'll see how this one's done, and I'll show you a picture in just a minute. What it does is it locks around the action so that you can't use the gun. You can't put a magazine, if it's a semi-automatic, you can't put a magazine in. If it's a revolver, you open the cylinder and lock it through there. None of these will keep anybody from stealing your gun, but they will keep an accident from happening because it's locked up and you've got the key somewhere else. So I've seen this, and I made this slide right here in just a minute. So invest in something that's quality. These are, any gun that's sold these days is going to have one of these in it. It's okay, but I would recommend investing in something that's a little bit more sturdy, a little bit more robust, something that'll work. Know how to use it both safely and correctly. So here's a picture. You got to know how your gun works, and you're trying to prevent unauthorized access. So just having the trigger lock on there doesn't do any good. Because of the way that gun works, it's not stopping anybody from doing anything. It's just a necklace for that gun. It's going to hang on there while you're shooting. So if you don't put it through correctly, through the magazine well and through the action, it's not going to work. So understanding how the gun works and how you can prevent it from being used is very important. All right, so now let's talk about training. If you choose to own a firearm, it is very important that you seek out training from a qualified individual, qualified instructor. One of the things that I will tell you is if you find somebody that's got a business card that says, hey, I teach people how to shoot, and you think you want to hire them, you ask them what the 4 rules of firearm safety are. And if they don't start talking right away and say, hey, we treat all guns like they're loaded, we don't point at anything that we don't want to destroy, we keep your finger off the trigger, we know what our target is supposed to be on. If they can't say it just like that, you need to go somewhere else. Because there are a lot of people that will say that they can teach firearms, but they don't understand the basics of safety. You want to go somewhere else, probably. So training is very important. You want to practice, practice, practice. If it's worth investing your money, it's worth investing your time in as well. So every time you handle a firearm, you want to practice safety. You want it to become where you don't even have to think about it, and safety is your #1 goal. So every time I get a gun, if I get a gun out to come to work, I always know where it's pointed. I always treat it like it's loaded. Even if I'm loading it to come to work, I keep it pointed in a safe direction. I do all that stuff with it every day, no matter what. So that's one thing that you can practice. It says safe dry practice. It is important to practice handling that gun, to practice moving that gun from one place to another, to practice if you have a holster to draw from the holster with no bullets. We get as much training and never fire around because we practice drawing, we practice reholstering, We practice tactics and doing things like that without ever shooting our guns. And being comfortable holding the gun and being comfortable with not pointing in the right direction. We have some police officers, especially when they first start out, that they're holding a gun and it looks like they just picked up a rattlesnake because they don't know what to do with it. And that's not what you want to see when you call 911 and the guy has to take his gun out and he's really scared. So we work on that, and dry practice is a very good way to do that. And then finally, live fire range time. So when we start talking about shooting on the range, there are several different things, there are several different steps to shooting on the range. When you're a baby, the very first thing you do is learn to crawl. And then you learn to walk, and then you learn to run. So if you get to the point where you're crawling and you can go to the range and you can lay everything out and get super slow and methodical and all like that, that's good, but that's not where you want to be. So you want to get to the point where you are comfortable having a gun around you, having a gun, knowing that somebody's got a gun, and knowing that if you have to use it, that you can do that. So marksmanship is important. And marksmanship is just simply being able to line up your sights and hit what you're aiming at, which under the perfect conditions, that's awesome. And we work on that with the police officers. We'll make sure that their stance is perfect, we'll make sure that their grip is perfect, and we'll line them up and we'll give them all day to take a shot and hit what they're aiming at. Then we'll put them under a little bit of stress and we'll make them move and we'll make them shoot fast, and what they're hitting goes way down because of the stress, and they're not able to take their time and do it. So just like that, when you first start out, you can crawl and take your time crawling and don't go any faster than you need to, but get to the point where you're comfortable with it. Have somebody help you in the training so that you can progress and grow as a firearm owner. The more comfortable you are with it, and not that you're laid back and lackadaisical with it, but the more comfortable you are being around guns and having guns in your hand and things like that, the better off you will be if you ever have to use them. It's because the stress of a shooting is going to be through the roof. And the video that everybody saw on the news of the people coming into the house, she was completely stressed out, I guarantee you. But she kept it together and did what she needed to do to protect herself and her home and all that. So, again, if you go to somebody for training, don't let them push you too far too fast, but make sure that at some point you go from perfect stance, perfect marksmanship, up to some sort of stressful training where you can test yourself and understand that it's not always going to work out perfect. And guys don't typically like to do this, but read the manual. There's a lot of good information in that book. Read through it real quick, and it will help save you some stuff on how the gun works, on maintaining the gun, and that's something that I didn't put in here. Take care of your gun. You have to clean it. When you shoot it, it gets dirty. If you let it get wet, it might start rusting. So it's important to keep it clean. So when you're seeking out training, find somebody who will also help you, show you how to take it apart, show you how to clean it, show you how to keep it oiled, and then show you how to put it back together and make sure it's working. So that's just as important in the training as well. All right, so let's talk about selecting a firearm. When you pick your first firearm, you need to take into consideration what you want it for. You want it for concealed carry. You say, hey, I want to get a permit and I want to carry that gun with me everywhere I go. They're probably, some of y'all are business owners. If you carry a large sum of money around, you might say, hey, I want to have that gun with me when I've got the money. And we'll talk in a few minutes about the process for a permit and things of that. So think about what you want it for, and you need to find a gun that is going to answer your needs. So do you want a handgun, do you want a long gun? There is nothing wrong with if you say, hey, I'm not taking a gun out to the grocery store or anything like that. I'm just going to have it at home. There's nothing wrong with having a shotgun in your house. And understanding how the shotgun works, and if that's what you have, for home defense or self-protection in your home, that's a very good tool. Absolutely a good tool. Do you want a revolver? Do you want a semi-automatic? If you've chosen a handgun, then the next question you have to answer is a revolver or semi-automatic. And that's all going to be based on A, what fits you, but B, what you're more comfortable with. And then again, which gun fits you the best. So these guns, the 45 is not where you want to start if you've never shot a gun before. Because the first time you pull the trigger, it goes off and it jumps way up in your hand, you're going to be scared of it. So start with something you can be comfortable with and work your way up. All right, and then manual safeties. Some guns have manual safeties, and they are very important, but you are the safety. You're the biggest safety that that gun has. If we go back to the rules that we started off with, and we follow those rules, whether it has a mechanical safety on it or not, we're going to be okay, right? So, 3 types of safeties. There's an automatic safety. Some pistols have a grip safety, and if you're not gripping the gun right, you can't pull the trigger. Some guns have a trigger safety. If you don't pull the trigger across the face of the trigger, it's not going to go off. So if you kind of just pull from the side, it's not going to do it. And those go automatically. Other guns have a thumb safety. So you actually have to move something to take the safety off to be ready to fire. There are crossbolt safeties, there are slide mounted safeties. Some revolvers have a decocker, which makes the gun safe, but you have to push it down. But if you leave it down and try to pull the trigger, nothing will happen. So you have to understand the gun that you choose, how it's going to work. And then there's internal safeties. All guns pretty much that are manufactured these days have some sort of internal safety. So there's a fire, on these there's a firing pin safety and there's a drop safety. So if I drop this gun that I'm wearing right now, it's not going to go off. So it's got 3 safeties on it, and all 3 of those are disengaged when you pull the trigger. But if you don't pull the trigger, if it drops or it falls, it's not set up ready to go off. So let me ask you this. Safeties are mechanical devices. Has anybody ever had a car break down? Your safety can break down too. So don't rely on it. Don't think, oh, this gun's all safe. I can do whatever I want to with it. Because if the safety's not working and you violate the 4 rules that we talked about up front, somebody's going to get hurt. And then ammunition. Know how your ammunition is designed to perform. So the bullets that we carry are hollow points. And by hollow points, I mean that it's not just a round tip on the front, it's got a hollowed out section. The idea behind that is as that bullet hits, it starts to spread out. And when it spreads out, the bigger surface area on the front helps the bullet to slow down. So it keeps it from, if we were in a house or an apartment or something like that and we had to shoot, when it starts opening up like that, it starts losing velocity and hopefully is not going to go through 4 or 5 walls or anything like that, and it's going to slow down a little bit faster. The hollow point is a self-defense round. Its other benefit is that if you shoot somebody that's attacking you and it goes in and spreads out, then it's a bigger hole, which hopefully will incapacitate them a little bit faster to keep you safe. So they also make training ammo or ball ammunition. And ball ammunition is like it's just round on the front. Some of them can be flat on the front. They're designed to stay together, but they are truly designed for practice. They're for punching holes in paper. They're for shooting bottles or cans or whatever you can do at your range. But they're not self-defense rounds. We've seen shootings where people have been shot with ball ammunition 3 and 4 times, and all it does when it goes in is it goes in and comes out. If it doesn't hit anything like a bone or an artery or something like that, it's not gonna do any other damage other than just passing right through. So the myths about hollow points and rifle ammunition, if you choose to get a rifle, understand there are some very good rifles that are good for home defense, and the rifle, even though it's a longer cartridge, is less likely to go through the sheetrock than this pistol that I'm carrying. because how small the bullets are, they're more likely to start tumbling or start falling apart than these bullets are. So don't think that just because, oh, I've got a rifle, I'm going to shoot, it's going to go through 12 walls. That's not necessarily the case. So some research on that would be definitely appropriate. All right, so I'm going to switch from talking about guns specifically to talking about some of the laws, firearm laws and self-defense laws. Can I answer any kind of, I guess, general questions of anything that I may not have covered that you're really wondering about in the section on firearms and firearm safety?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You mentioned about fully automatic earlier. In the state of Georgia, is slide fire legal?
A slide fire?
Slide fire stock.
So, and what he's asking about, there are companies who have invented slide fire, bump fire, different things like that. It's still, even though it looks like it's fully automatic, every time it goes off, it's pulling the trigger. So those are legal. They're not very practical. They're more for fun and playing. But the stock is designed to allow the gun to work in. And so you can pull the trigger, the gun recoils a little bit, and when it comes back forward, your hand hasn't moved, so it pulls the trigger again. So it's really pulling the trigger every time, but bump fire, slide fire, things like that are legal in the state of Georgia.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody else? Anything? Yes, ma'am.
So like, what age would be appropriate to tell the kids, like, daddy or mommy was down in the house? If they have siblings, they have like, large age difference. Like, you tell the older one, like when you tell the little one, or you just don't tell the little one?
So it was easier for me because every day they would see me get dressed and see me with a gun. And so it was a conversation when they were 3 and 4. I think you can start talking about it at 3 and 4. Obviously, at that point, you're building stuff up. But, my girls have been shooting at 8 and 9, and they're comfortable.